Hi and welcome back to another kitchen video. This time I'm going to use these two cake mixes, and they are for something called romkugler in Danish. And romkugler is normally something that you make out of cake scraps, but this time I am using these mixes and I'm just mixing it with water and then baking it, and then afterwards I'm making it into these small balls called romkugler. So that is really easy. And when I first put in the water, it seems like there wasn't enough, but after I just mixed it around a little with my spoon, it was the perfect consistency. And on the package it says to bake it for 10 minutes, but I think I baked it for at least 20 because I had two mixes in one bowl, so it had to get a little longer time in the oven, but then it was also perfect. And now I'm walking out to my pantry where I'm going to get some eggs for my next project. And I always have all of my eggs out here. That's a little cooler than the rest of the house, and I never have them in my fridge. And the ones that I'm taking now is actually some hatching eggs, but I only use them when they're up to 1 week old for hatching. And that's some of the duck eggs. So now I'm just using them in my cooking. And I'm also going to use some of the zucchini that we harvested the other day, and I have that in this fridge, so I'm going to use some of them. And I'm cutting them into these long strips so that I can get them down into the food processor. And I'm grating them so I can use them in some of the next recipes that I'm going to show you now. And in this first recipe, I'm going to use about half of the eggs, and I'm going to make some zucchini pancakes out of it. I have linked the recipes down in the description, but I'm not following them exactly, like I never do. And this time I didn't want to be in the kitchen all day long and flip the pancakes on my stovetop, so I put them in the oven instead, and I'll show you later how that turned out. And now the cake is done, and it looks a lot like a brownie. It's also a little moist inside, just like a brownie is. I'm dividing the pancake mixture onto two baking plates, and then just smoothing it out so it's really flat. It will of course be a lot thicker than a normal pancake, but I'm also going to use this as a bread. In the recipe it says to put in wheat flour, but if you want to make it keto, you can just put in something else, like psyllium husk or some other kind of fiber that will bind it all together. And now I'm on to the next recipe, and I'm also going to use a lot of zucchini here, and I'm just grating it as I did with the other recipe. And this recipe is for some Greek kind of meatballs, I would say, but just without the meat. They're vegetarian. So I'm putting the grated zucchini into this bowl, and then I'm putting some salt on it, and I'm mixing it around, just letting it sit for a few hours so it can draw out some of the moisture, and then I will squeeze the rest of the moisture out so that they are not too wet when I'm going to make them later on. I'm also going to chop some onions that will go into that mixture. You could also just grate them in the food processor or chop them in there to make them really small if you wanted to. I'm just doing it this way. And now the pancakes are done and they look really good. And if you wanted to, you could also use this as a base for a pizza. I have done that before with a similar recipe where I just used eggs, grated zucchini and some cheese and I think some husk. So now on to this recipe again, where I'm still chopping some onions. And I have just squeezed out all of that excess water from the grated zucchini, and then I'm putting it into the bowl that I used before for the pancake mixture. There's no need to wash it out before because it's almost the same ingredients. And you can see all of these really beautiful yolks from the duck eggs. They just look so appetizing compared to store-bought eggs where the yellows are almost white instead of yellow. And I'm just putting in some of the spices that I like, some garlic powder and some chives and salt and pepper and so on. And then I'm just mixing it around. And I'm also putting in some grated cheddar and some Emmentaler. You can use whatever kind of cheese you like. I think that in the recipe it called for feta cheese, but I didn't have that this day, so I just used some other cheese. And because it was Greek meatballs, or zucchini balls, I wanted to put in some oregano because I feel that that's a really Greek taste. This is some vital wheat gluten that I'm putting in. The recipe called for wheat flour as well, but I'm trying to make it keto, so that's why I'm only putting this in and some husk fibers. This is the husk. And I think I used about 3 tablespoons of each of these things. You could also use some other kind of fiber. It's just to bind it a little more together. And I also don't want to be standing in the kitchen for this all day. So instead of frying them on a pan, I'm distributing them out on this baking pan and with this really big ice cream scoop. And I kind of make some big zucchini balls with it. And then I was a little afraid if they were too big, so the rest of the mixture I made in another way, a little like the pancake mixture. I just flattened it out on 2 baking plates. And I'm trying to make each plate into 4 squares, so it's a little easier when they are baked and I don't have to cut them as much. And in this way, some of the extra moisture can also run out into those channels in between, and hopefully that will make it a little easier, not too wet when they're finished, but actually it worked out really well this way. And I have all 3 plates in the oven at the same time, and it looks really good. They are getting baked at least. And this is the finished product from those bigger balls or meatballs or whatever you want to call them. And they're also nice in the bottom, and inside they are really moist, and on the outside they are firm. And these are the flat ones, and these we are also going to use like sandwich bread or something like that. And just like with the pancakes, you can also use them as a bottom for the pizzas. And we just had to have a taste test on these, and they were surprisingly good. We both liked them really much. And now it is later in the day and the cake has cooled, so I'm going to put it into my mixing bowl and mix it around with just a little water, only a few tablespoons of water. And it's a little moist cake, but not doughy or anything like that. And it has a nice smell of rum, because it's rum balls. So it's only, I think it's a fake rum, it's not really real rum that's in there, but you can definitely use real rum. And then I'm just mixing it around for a few seconds, and then I'm going to roll them into little balls and roll them in some coconut flour. And then they are finished and ready to eat. And now it has this sticky consistency that is necessary. So I'm going to just leave it as it is. And this is my coconut flour. And I think I got about 20 balls or something like that. You can definitely make them smaller if you wanted to. But as I said before, I don't want to be in the kitchen all day long. So I'm just making them into this size, and that is fine with us. And this is a finished result, and if you only made them half as big, you can get twice as many. And then I was also out in the garden where I harvested a lot of herbs and some flowers for teas and one single tomato. And I'm just letting it sit on the table to dry. I also have a dehydrator, but I don't use it as much for herbs because it's not necessary. So I both have some basil and a lot of different mints and so, and this nasturtium is just so pretty. So this is all for this time, and thank you for watching, and I hope you want to subscribe and follow us on Instagram on Vestas Farm Life. Bye bye.